Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Lori Hale. As I was sitting with the Lord the other day, I received a vision. And in the vision, I saw a koala bear sitting in a eucalyptus tree. Then I heard, Qantas shall fall from the sky and implode in a fiery crash. At first, I was a little confused by the koala bear, since Qantas is known for the kangaroo image on the tail of all her planes. But later I discovered that from 1962 to 1992, Qantas ran an ad campaign which featured a koala bear that was designed to not only advance awareness of the airline, but also to highlight its exceptional customer service. The koala bear then, at some point, became the company's mascot. Something I wanted to clarify before sharing today's word is that often the Lord will use wording that can be taken as literal when he is actually speaking figuratively. That's why we need to do our due diligence and ask him to give us the deeper understanding of what he is saying and not run on assumption. As the Lord continued, I heard, "Thus shall it be that this once trusted name will be unable to fully recover from the tailspin she is already in, for the nose of this airline continues to point downward. So though the one in the pilot seat claims to have regained complete control of this carrier's trajectory, the damage done to her undercarriage in the recent past shall prove to be more extensive than at first thought. Thus shall this airline known as Qantas go down in flames." And while surely this is indeed sad news, for many shall be the lives affected by this disastrous turn of events, still will the name of this airline, Qantas, join the growing list of companies and corporations that were gravely impacted during the so-called pandemic, that globalized ruse which nearly shut down the entire world. So though this airline Qantas is considered somewhat iconic, this status shall not keep her airbound, as very soon shall this airline's flight suddenly be canceled, and so shall that flying kangaroo, which once flew, vanish from the airspace overhead, and thereby quickly be forgotten, even by those who inhabit that region down under, proving true yet again that old adage which says, "Out of sight, out of mind." Then just as a giant brick, when dropped, cannot escape gravity's pull, so too shall this airline, known as Qantas, now be unable to avoid her rapid descent from solvency, making it a much more difficult task to keep open her doors, as a decision has been made that will seal this carrier's fate, and thus has created an inevitable end. For now there are no paths that actually lead to a real recovery, though a few alternate routes have already been more than considered. Yet out from under the rubble shall a much better version of this airline emerge, one that is reminiscent of the past, which in turn shall open the way to new innovations in the entire airline industry. For many lessons shall have been learned from Qantas's failures. Now, I'm not certain if the Lord was necessarily referring to Qantas as the airline which will emerge from the rubble, or an actual new airline. But what I sensed was that it will embody the company's standards Qantas Airlines used to be known for. Then the Lord continued, "Then the positive outlook this carrier is putting forth to the public shall not last, for it won't take long before the damage, which was thought to have been repaired, gives way, as the heavier financial load recently added shall prove unsustainable. For just as it was with that so-called pandemic, unforeseen circumstances shall once again arise and cause large cracks in this carrier's outer hull, thus forcing those in the pilot seat to issue a mayday out over the airwaves. Yet shall this appeal for aid come much too late, as any form of rescue cannot fix the failings of this airline's internal structure, and thus shall her value plummet. But Qantas shall not be the only well-known brand that has sustained lasting damage to its infrastructure during those days of that so-called pandemic. And thus shall even more of these businesses simply disappear. So shall change continue to abound across the entire globe, as a number of brands that were considered mainstays in many regions will no longer be available, and with some, a replacement shall not be found. And while the quickened pace of change that is occurring in this season may cause some to be unsettled and even alarmed, let it be understood that in the midst of all the upheaval these alterations are causing, my eternal timeline is progressing forward. For indeed are my higher purposes being served, and therefore my own should remain undisturbed by what they see happening upon the earth. For surely those who have put their trust in me and not in man are held to an unshakable stance, as they are certain of who I am, and thus rest in the knowing that my intentions are always good. Thanks again for joining me today.